popularity of seven-a-side rugby has been on the increase in recent times. With fewer players on the same sized field, play tends to be faster and more open, and for the spectators more entertaining. That was certainly the case at Marcellin Park Lawn, where a healthy crowd was on hand for Maitland Junior Rugby Club's first seven-a-side tournament. 32 teams from around the state and local area entered in 4 age groups. Local teams found the competition tough. In the under-10s, Maitland was beaten by Greystanes from Sydney. Central North defeated Newcastle Wanderers in the under-12s, but Waratah saved some local pride in the under-14s, beating Borkham Hills. Thanks to the popularity of today's tournament, it seems almost certain to become an annual event.
Is a first-year seminarian at St Patrick's College in Manly. He was educated at St Pius X College at Abbottstown and, with his family, is still an active member of the Catholic community at Charlestown. Brian says he's terrified at the prospect of singing before the Pope and a crowd expected to number 250,000. And this will be your first public performance. How are you feeling?
For me, it's exciting. It's something that I never expected to be able to do. When my name was given to the people organising it, it was a thrill to think that I'd been thought of, but I never thought I'd get it.
Brian will follow the Pope's greeting to the crowd by singing the penitential rite. He'll also respond to the prayers of the faithful and sing this hymn, Eat This Bread.
Drink this cup, trust in me and you will not thirst. Your ancestors ate
The 2 new Hornets were handed over to the commanding officer of No. 3 Squadron, Wing Commander Bruce Mowat, and Squadron Executive Officer, Squadron Leader Ross Fox. Just after midday today, the aircraft took off bound for Williamtown. No. 3 Squadron has a long and international history. Originally formed in 1916, they took part in many campaigns during World War I, largely in France. The squadron has kept the original livery, and all its aircraft are painted with the fleur-de-lis. From 1969, No. 3 Squadron has been based in Butterworth, Malaysia, flying Mirages, and on the 31st of March this year, ceased operation in Malaysia and reformed in Williamtown, ready for the delivery of the new Hornets. The squadron has come a long way since 1916, and the sight of the new aircraft in the skies over Williamtown shows that aircraft technology has also moved in 70 years.
To make a visual approach, you'll be No. 3 to 2 Hornets on left base.
Victor, tally that aircraft.
Goes here, Victor.
A special welcome had been planned for the 2 Hornets on touchdown only 55 minutes after they left Melbourne, with an impressive guard of honour provided by the base. Wing Commander Mowat and Squadron Leader Fox were met by the officer commanding Williamtown, Air Commodore Bomble, and champagne to celebrate the arrival.
Cheers, XO. Later. 3 Squadron will be a multi-role squadron that is carrying out the functions of air defence and ground attack functions. We have a slight emphasis though on the air defence because of our major goal of air defence of Australia, obviously.
The next aircraft to be delivered will arrive here at Williamtown Air Force Base on the 20th of September. A further 3 aircraft will arrive every 2 months until the squadron reaches its full strength of 16.
Over
300 indoor bowlers converged on Newcastle this week for the championships. The 6-day event attracted teams from each Australian state except for Western Australia. Today at the Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium, they played the 12 finals to decide the Australian champions for the year. In the singles, finals were held for girls, boys, ladies and men, while in the pairs, triples and fours, it was ladies, men's and mixed. The winners of all events, that's 13 men and 13 women, will make up the Australian team to tour New Zealand next year. There was a large and vocal crowd on hand today, and 5 of the finalists came from the local area.
On the Hawkesbury River near Windsor, Hickling's boat became the fastest ever to be powered by LP gas. The record was originally set in the United States at more than 160 kilometres an hour, and Hickling needed to better that speed twice before the record would be his. He did it comfortably with a top speed of 190 kilometres an hour.
Merriula was a large house probably built around the turn of the century in the Sydney suburb of Woollahra. The success of Merriula as an artists' colony has been placed at the feet of its then landlady, Chica Edgeworth Lowe. Interested in the arts, she didn't believe it was good for visual artists to be separated from others. Assistant Director of the Newcastle Region Art Gallery, Sue Garside, agrees that Merriula was a special place.
Well, I think it was because there was such a diverse range of artists, not just painters, but a potter, a sculptor, there were dancers, some artists were writers as well, was a photographer, and they all lived and worked together. And it was amazing vitality and creative energy of all of these creative people in the one house, in the mansion. Donald Friend has had a long career, both as an artist and a writer, and he's represented by some of the more satirical, witty paintings that he did about this time. He was really commenting, I think, on Sydney social life, what was happening. Well, Arthur Fleischmann is represented in the exhibition. He was a sculptor. He was a figurative sculptor. He took the female figure as his model, and there are bronzes. There's also portraits that he's done in bronze. Another artist in the exhibition is Jocelyn Rickards. She was an artist. She also worked as a costume designer. And like many of the other Merriula artists, she went on to become famous overseas. Justin Brown, he's perhaps Australia's first religious painter. And there's a wonderful picture, Virgin number 3, which won the Blake Prize for religious painting. Loudon he is known both as an artist and once again as a costume designer, but perhaps more importantly, as set designers.
In many ways, the end of the war meant the heyday of Merriula. Most artists had just been through the war and were at last free again to paint, discuss ideas and plan a future. Merriula became a magnet to local and overseas artists, and many others, as this photo of a young Kerry Packer shows. In 1951, the house was demolished. For over a decade, it had provided home and studio space to artists, musicians, writers and dancers. But the work that came from artists such as Fleischmann, O'Brien, St Hill and Rickards still lives on in the Merriula exhibition. Their eccentricities and their ways are now a part of history. As Donald Friend said, "We were charming. We were bloody charming. We really were."
When Cardiff and West Wallsend fire brigades arrived at the complex this morning at around 3 o'clock, the signal box was well alight. Once a two-storey building which housed complex signalling and switching equipment, it was reduced to a pile of smouldering rubble. The sight of it was heartbreaking to club members. Last night's fire is just a more visible example of the constant vandalism which occurs here. The volunteers who run the Model Locomotive Club say they're losing heart trying to keep ahead of the damage. They could just close up and forget it, but 2,000 to 3,000 members of the public enjoy the complex each month. In fact, last Sunday the club recorded over 2,900 visitors, a facility offered at no charge to the public. Alex Russell, a past director of the club, says a major portion of their running costs is repairing the work of vandals.
Well, I would say at least 1/3 of our income is spent on repairing the work of vandals, and we don't have such a large income as I've pointed out to you. It's purely on donation basis.
Yep. Lake Macquarie City Council Mayor Jeff Pasterfield, who accompanied insurance assessors inspecting the damage, says council is devising a scheme where a reward will be offered for information to help locate offenders of such crimes. He will now try to speed those measures through council. But for now, the Model Locomotive Club will spend the next few weeks cleaning this mess and readying the complex to operate as normally as possible on their next open day at the end of the month. And it was a two-storey building, wasn't it?
Oh, a two-storey, yes.
The days of spending little but your time to be elected to council seem to have disappeared. And now candidates for next week's elections are finding out that you have to pay for the privilege of even competing in the race. For that reason, many low-budget independent candidates say that to be assured of being a successful contender, it helps to be in the realm of the rich. Most groups see the necessity to spend money on letterbox drops and how-to-vote guides. These basics set the candidates back around $2,000 to $3,000. Then for the larger groups, there's the rent on campaign headquarters and advertising campaigns in newspapers, radio and television. This is how the balance sheet looks, with the Citizens Group and the Labor Party in the spending lead, followed closely on the heels by John Tate's Independence Group. These three intend to embark on a media campaign to win votes. The Liberal Party, headed by Ashley Saunders, has a budget of around $5,000. Others like Vic Bell, James E. Smith and Neville Cunningham have limited funds and so prefer the personal approach. Margaret Gumas, Ken Pettit and Jerry Wells, who are the other Lord Mayoral candidates, weren't able to be contacted today. Most of the funds in the larger groups come from fundraising events, donations or, in the Citizens Group case, contributions from the candidates. Leader of the group, Don Getty, says it's essential to make sure the contenders and their policies are well known.
I think it'd be a pretty tame election if the people didn't know who they were voting for or what the policies of the group were. And unfortunately, that's cost money.
Neville Cunningham, who's been using a home duplicator to run off his newsletter and friends to distribute them, says he prefers his low-budget approach.
To me, I've been getting out and around the streets here and talking to people, and by not being dependent on money and big business and the media, you know, one can just go out and enjoy meeting people and being in contact with them, and you know, and I think that's the way to go.
The larger groups will do all their advertising next week to bombard the voters with their policies and their candidates. But it won't be until the last votes are counted that they'll know whether all the trouble and expense has been worthwhile.
Shortly before 10 o'clock this morning, the woman driver of this vehicle lost control of her car. It slammed into a power pole. It could have been a lot worse though, as the car narrowly missed a couple riding push bikes. According to the couple, the driver apparently missed seeing a line of cars turning into Parkway Avenue and swerved and skidded to avoid the line at the last minute. The three women from the car were taken to hospital for observation. They were shaken but unharmed.
15-year-old Wombrel teenager was found staggering along the Pacific Highway here on the Mooney Mooney Ridge by a passing truck driver yesterday morning. She told police she'd been assaulted and left to die in bushland.
She was then rushed to Gosford Hospital, where she was examined and treated for her injuries.
The child went through an ordeal. She was taken into the scrubland, where she was finally assaulted, and there's no doubt that the offender attempted to strangle the young lady, right? And she's a very lucky girl that, in fact, she's still with us.
How is she reacting to the whole incident now?
She's obviously shattered. It's drained the young girl. It's hurt her very much, shocked her. She's been magnificent, really. She's held up very, very well, but she has been hurt badly.
And this is a reasonable likeness of the man that police are looking for. He's described as about 175 centimetres tall, 20 to 30 years of age, muscular build with collar-length brown wavy hair, prominent jaw, blue or grey eyes with bushy eyebrows, and was wearing shorts and a t-shirt and driving a white Galant sedan.
Today, Central Coast Police continue their investigations from Wombrel, Kilcare Heights, Saratoga and in bushland at Mooney Mooney. And they say they're eager to solve this brutal attempted murder.
The new foam fire extinguisher has been specially adapted to fight marina fires and is portable enough to be taken to any part of the complex. Sales manager of Wormald, John Pritchard, says the fire extinguisher has also been specially built and designed at the Wormald's Newcastle office.
No. Well, it's unique because it's completely portable. It's designed to be used in a marina type situation where you have limited space to work in. As you can see by the type of marina we have here, we don't have a lot of space to manoeuvre. It's unique because it runs off salt water, and whilever there's supply of salt water, whether it be from a reservoir or a lake or the ocean, it will work.
And can this sort of unit have any other applications elsewhere?
By simply altering the track of the vehicle, the width of the wheels, etc., it can be used in the coal mining sector and other areas similar to this, and we hope it will sell in that area as well.
Years ago, when the Matara Carnival was held in Civic Park, the operators say they were selling over 1,000 ride tickets each day. Now at the International Sports Centre, this less than crowded sideshow alley paints another picture. The treasurer of the Showman's Guild, Les Short, operates a number of rides and games within the complex. He says he's lucky now to sell 200 to 300 tickets a day.
Well, we've had no crowds here really, only the weekend crowds that came to the football.
Will you be trying to get back to Civic Park?
If possible, yes.
The Showmen invest big money in their operations. This ride, the Turbo, which today was operating without any riders, is worth $250,000. It's the sort of ride featured in the big fun parks overseas, but in Newcastle the logistics of getting to it seem to defeat its appeal. The Showmen say they were pushed off Civic Park after some young people got a bit wild on the final night of Matara 6 years ago. Council passed a resolution after that event prohibiting mechanical rides on the park. Since then, letters have been written to Council requesting a change on that ruling, and this year rubberised airfield rides were allowed in Civic Park. The Showmen, however, would like to see a return to the days when all their rides were accessible to the public.
After a $250,000 deficit in July, it became obvious to the administration at the Mater that costs needed to be cut, and two of the areas being considered were the paediatric and obstetrics units. The proposal met with fiery opposition from staff and parents, but their fears were doused today by Mr Anderson. The Health Minister says he will not allow any cuts in these essential departments, and he's told the hospital that it will simply have to look for more acceptable alternatives. A spokesman for the hospital says the deficit was caused through persistent underfunding in paediatrics, obstetrics and oncology. But today the Minister preempted this month's budget by announcing a huge increase in funding to the cancer unit over the next year.
And what also ought to be kept in mind is that there are substantial enhancements in the budget this year in 86.7 in terms of the funding of the oncology unit, which in full year amount to $1.92 million worth of improvements without taking into account anything that will flow to the unit from the capital works budget. So I am hopeful that as a result of the considerations by the board that they will come up with options in terms of control of expenditure, which most certainly will not involve the reduction in the sorts of services you're talking about.
The Secretary of the Mater Hospital, Ralph Watson, declined to comment on which departments would have to sustain the cuts. He says that decision will be made at the next hospital board meeting.